how to add bevels in Plasticity. First thing, go to the Plasticity page and head to Documentation. Scroll down to Integration and go to Setup Blender Bridge. Click the latest version and download. After you download the add-on, make sure to install it in Blender. After opening up Plasticity, isolate the asset you want to export. Head over to Blender and click to the Plasticity panel and click on Connect. Now it's important to make sure that when you do click Connect that your server end for Plasticity is enabled. So head on over to that by pressing Control comma and clicking on the Enabled button. Now hit Only Visible and refresh. This will import your asset into Blender. Once our object has been initially imported, let's now talk about why we want to do our bevels in Blender and not Plasticity. Most of the time when you're adding bevels, you can just add them in Plasticity, but for tiny bevels, like if I were to just bevel this edge slightly here, this can kind of get in the way, especially when you're still designing. Like if I were to do a cut right here, it now makes this bevel kind of difficult to work with, or this piece here more difficult to work with since we have this beveled out portion here. Same thing if I were to bevel this. If it's more of a design choice, like it's a part of the design of the piece, I would say it's fine, but if it's to just affect the profile slightly, I would leave this to do in Blender. Now we're just going to import our geometry from Plasticity into Blender. This is done simply with the Blender Bridge add-on as I showed previously. You just hit refresh onto the page. Now I made a mistake here. As you're going to see, I'm going to adjust the origin point of all the points on this mesh to be the site. Just by selecting the entire mesh, having each origin point go to the geometry, selecting the site and going to active. But you want to do this after you refacet, not before, because once you refacet, you're going to have to adjust the origin point once again. So remember that before you do this step. I did this out of order. As you can see by the geometry on the mesh, refaceted meshes are much cleaner and they actually are connected. Before you refacet the mesh, they're all in separated sheets and will not be actually joined together. Now there are many ways to add bevels in Blender. Zen Barbecue is a $9 add-on and it's the most intuitive way to have the most control over all of your add-ons. It's super easy. I'm going to show you how to use it right now. Alright, so once we have our add-on installed, we're going to go over to the different presets. So we have millimeters. This is what you're mostly going to use. Over here, I have kind of a custom setup from my previous file. It's super easy to adjust the size of your bevels. You just double click onto your thing, drag it around, and now you can adjust it. So this is at 7. I'm probably not going to use this large of a bevel, so I'm going to put this down to 0.25. And same with 10, definitely not going to be using 10, so we're going to put this down to 0.75. And just like that, we have this set up. We can make this a custom by adding as a new preset group. Let's do that here. This is going to be custom. There we go. Just like that, no ever default. All right, now let's go to our geometry and let's get started. In order to access the pie menu for Zen Barbecue, we're going to press Control-Shift-X, and that's going to bring us over here. As you can see, we have all the variables that we put in. I'm just going to go in and select. As you can see, nothing has happened. That's because in order to view our bevels, we need to use the render system since these are done in the shader, just like so. Alright, so we can just press Control-Shift-X again, and now click onto Render Preview. Make sure that you have some form of lighting set up. Let's go ahead and add some lights real fast with hard ops. There we go. Alright. Let's do a box select. And now as you can see, we have some nice bevels going. And something that I've always had a problem with regular bevels as you've used in Blender is that there be some portions that are just too large of a bevel. Like right here, I want this to be tighter, which we can now do. So you go into your selection mode, make my life a little bit easier. I'm going to tab out render view mode here. Look at the piece I'm looking at. Make this my render view. Just this section. Right. So we're going to go over here. And as you can see, we have our mesh. This has already been UV unwrapped. We're just going to select the parts that we do not want to be so heavily beveled. So I'm going to press Alt-C to make sure I can look through the entire mesh, just like so. We're going to press Control-Shift-X again, and now we can select the tighter bevel. Let's try that 0.5 bevel that we input before and see how that looks. Just like that, you can see already have a nicer look. Let's look over here. This also seems to be too large, so we're going to come over here. And apply a 0.25. That might be too tight. Let's stick to 0.5. Try 1. 1 might be too large. Let's stick with 0.5. Alright. It's important that you view your Zen barbecue blenders in cycles, as Eevee won't display the bevel, as shown here. This is pretty much the entirety of the add-on. It's super simple to use, very customizable, and super helpful, especially when using these CAD models. It's much easier to add these bevels in Blender this way than to manually adjust all the bevels onto the plasticity mesh. You can also bake these meshes. So once you're done with your bevels, you can go ahead here and create an image texture that you're going to bake to. At this point, you got to start UV unwrapping. I just follow a simple method for hard surface objects that works a decent amount of the time. You still have to adjust for any warping. I'd like to introduce you to another add-on called Text Tools. This one is completely free. It just really helps with the UV process and baking. Once you've installed Text Tools, go to the UV editing tab and drop down to 4096. I want to make sure this is in a 4K resolution. You can then go to the baking area and you can see that the target normal will already be selected for bake. Since we have nothing baked yet, we can just preview texture, and as of course nothing will be there. Once you're all set up, click Bake. Text Tools will create a new image texture for your baked map. Make sure to rename the name of this image, and then select that baked normal map on your image texture. As you can see, this will give you the baked bevels. This is lightweight and super useful if you want to take this to Substance Painter. I like adding a glossy material here just to double check, making sure all my normals are correct and nothing looks off. Now that our normals are looking all right, this will be the end of the video. Thank you for following me along on how to add non-destructive bevels to your plasticity models. Thank you for watching.